The English have another ingenious plan.
Tentatively titled, The Unthinkable?
This time the plan is military, which is called I'm not a gynecologist, but I can look.
I mean, we're not even going to try to analyze its military strategic component. We're in terms of numbers, logistics and supply.
So, the gist of the British plan, published by the Financial Times.
What does fiscal time have to do with war plans?
Oh, come on.
All this is expressed there in the classic, I'll jump out, and then the pieces will fall apart.
That is, in an insane attempt to pounce around with empty threats.
No preparation.
A prepared housewife might start reading the whole thing.
The British Expeditionary Corps lands in Poland.
In the country of 404, attack Transnistria, concentrate in Norway and Finland, and threaten the Baltic states as well, and faint, or even have a heart attack.
And we'll remember one movie based on Paul Anderson's book, The Crystallos of Space. There's a character called Red.
Red, what's the battle plan?
3,000 left, 3,000 right, and 3,000 center. Red, there's only 20 of us. Well, you get the picture. Listed population of all of British America. Army of about 74,000 people with no kit and massive obesity.
And so, waiting for the British clone armies under cover of Stardesk, Reuters and Death Stars attack the half-naked orcs, meeting almost no resistance, laser in the star on the earpiece. And in reality, the United West can't even produce the necessary amount of shells for our miserable neighbors with whom you are in conflict, and what the rest of the crowd will fight the mighty British Navy. The new flagship nearly burned and then nearly sank before leaving port.
And now again he couldn't go to the drill because of a new breakdown. And two pennants recently rammed into each other. Also right in the harbor.
Can you imagine what they'll do on the high seas? Oh, yeah, I almost forgot.
England didn't have enough money to arm the destroyers, so they made gyms with treadmills and exercise machines in the missile silos.
Well, let's say they finally go nuts amidst the phantom pains and birth trauma of the Light Brigade attack and decide to collectively self-immolate. You can imagine what a logistical nightmare it is to supply several expeditionary corps in different locations and all by sea. And Russia has a bunch of nuclear submarines that will happily sink it all.
Comrade Martynov has a special video dedicated to the theater of operations of nuclear submarines. We were impressed. As the same Comrade Martynov rightly pointed out under Dunkirk amicably.
Estimates of 400,000 British soldiers.
And there's only 70,000 of them scattered all over the place. Sawing the British army in several directions.
An almighty 70,000 across Scandinavia, the Baltics, Poland and country 404. They'll get their asses kicked here. They'll get their asses kicked there. They'll get their asses kicked everywhere. Such a massive dunker in several places at once. And back home, the troops are gone.
And a fleet that could have prevented a landing on the island, too.
You've got to be kidding me. What's next? The Scottish People's Republic in the referendum?
Without troops, they'll fall apart and won't even need to be invaded. But it's not for sure. It's not gonna happen, it's some junkie's fantasy.
There's no one to do anything about it.
So instead of the two of us around on four sides, nonsense, we'll never see anything concrete.
In the form of names of units, their numbers, transferred weapons, for then such plans will look frankly pathetic.
Now let's move into the economic realm.
Everyone knows such a thing as the 5 stages of accepting the inevitable.
And now, when it has become obvious to all but the most stubborn, zombified fools that Russia is inevitably winning, some are still on the side of denial and bargaining.
So the media came up with a whole bunch of different crazy plans on how to save the country of 404 and where to find the money to sustain its miserable existence.
Let's say right away that there are no adequate ones among them. And they differ only in the degree of insanity and detachment from reality.
But some keep asking, can they do it?
So here is presented a brilliant idea, actually no, voiced in different variations in several places already. Let's pledge Russian assets as collateral in a particularly fucked up version of future reparations.
When 404 wins, we'll issue debt. We have already once explained that under any normal legislation, including, incidentally, the British illegal retention of other people's, in this case Russian, assets, is a malicious attempt to appropriate private property, i.e. theft. By the way, profiting from stolen property is also illegal.
So we will give the 404 regime the interest earned from frozen Russian assets.
That's stealing, too.
There are no articles in any legislation. Somebody attacked somebody, so,
you can take his property.
For then property could be taken from the US, Britain, France, Germany, Australia, Canada and other members of the US coalitions that invaded Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya and so on.
UN sanctions on the peacekeeping operation.
No, there is no normal, legally justifiable invasion. Russia does, by the way. So aggression bye-bye.
Everyone realizes this, though they don't say it directly. So no country implements such a legal rule.
Once again, no unprovoked aggression is grounds for taking someone else's property. Israel, which bombs most of its neighbors, is strongly opposed, including. There is not the slightest legal hitch to legally steal Russian assets. And if you go for outright lawlessness, everyone else will take their money out of lawlessness territory.
There was a demo of this process last spring, and several large European banks nearly went under. That's why it still hasn't been done.
If Russia was defeated, then it would be like with the stolen Libyan billions.
But you can't win, so there's no way. Then again, those leering EU morons have even snagged some semblance of a registry in 2 years.
Frozen property has not been made to make it clear how much of it there is and where. And are constantly confused in their testimony on the subject.
How are they going to bail it out then? We have something somewhere, we don't know where, some other people's property, we don't know how much. Give us a lot of money for it.
Fucked up beyond belief.
Accordingly, at the time of a legal change of ownership, such property becomes unclean.
And further, any transactions with such property, buying, selling, renting, using for profit, pledging, and so on, are criminal offenses.
When stolen gold is brought to the pawn shop, although formally it is not bought, but pledged for a loan, but it still goes as buying stolen goods. Can't we imagine a situation when a potential investor will say that we have debt obligations, losing the war of the country 404 against the collateral of stolen Russian property?
We should definitely invest. Give me 2.
No one wants to raise a criminal article from the floor, especially if it is fraught with subsequent confiscation, because you buy someone else's and give your own. A version of it. But this RAC proposal, as a pledge of future reparations in Russia, looks even more insane.
No bookie will bet on a 404 country win right now.
Generally the very idea, we are at war to get reparations that are already laid down. And when we win, we get nothing and stay screwed like that. It's just quintessential beggar rugalism. Dying to remain beggar slaves. However, this is no longer from the field of economics, but from psychiatry. That's where the subject matter experts should be.